and is part of the international training network Protect. His doctoral research focuses on the ethical problems that arise due to the collection of consumer data, which allows firms to predict and manufacture the behavior of consumers. So he's investigating the consequences of these digital nudges, or the consequences that these digital nudges will have for our autonomy, for our well-being, and for economy. Obviously, this is very cutting edge and very topical subject, so I'm really looking forward to what you're going to say, Paul. So, as I said, if you want to ask any questions, please put them into the Q&A. The talk will last, I suppose, 20 to 30 minutes. That'll give us enough time for a Q&A. There will be a recording of the lecture that'll be up on the YouTube channel associated with this, and we'll be finishing at about 10 to 2. So, Paul, thank you very much for talking, and I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, Fiachra, thank you so much for the introduction and your kind words, and also thank you so much for inviting me. I'll start sharing my screen to get the PowerPoint. I hope that's now visible for everyone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So when I was asked to give a talk for the data and for this week, I wanted to connect it, of course, with privacy, and my own research focuses on on digital nudges, which is means of influencing people psychologically online. And I want to connect this to privacy. So what my talk will be about today is why is privacy important? Why do we need privacy? Mainly because if you ask people on the street, do you value privacy? A very often heard answer is, I have nothing to hide. You have numerous of these funny YouTube clips, you can look them up. If you ask people, do you value privacy? The answer, I have nothing to hide. You start asking about their birthday, then about their financial records, and it turns out they do have something to hide. But while these movies are very funny and enjoyable to watch, I don't think this quite captures the essence of why privacy is important and why we should care about privacy. So we do have something to hide, as I will argue for, but what are we hiding and who are we hiding it from? That's a very important question. If you open Facebook, you may have seen this screen for those of you who are using Facebook. Facebook asks you to set your privacy settings in a certain way. So they ask you, who do you want your posts? Who do you want to see your posts? And you can choose between public, friends, friends except for some friends, only specific friends, or just you. So they frame the question of privacy as it were that who can see your posts? That is the essence of privacy. So you write a post online on any social medium, and the question is, who can see them? Who can interact with you? Who will be able to see the things you share? So I don't think this is what privacy is about, and this is the wrong way to frame the question, because it doesn't fundamentally answer who are we hiding our data from, because the most important one who we should be hiding our data from is not on the list that Facebook presents here. So I want to continue with another statement, that's often heard in terms of privacy, and what a lot of people say. So this is a common misconception. A lot of people think that if you only look around on social media, your data are protected. Now, this is exactly what Facebook plays into with the previous message. They say that sharing your posts, sharing your feelings, your thoughts, whatever, that is what privacy is all about. So if you're not looking, if you're just looking on Facebook or any other social medium, your privacy should be protected. That is the idea here. But this is completely untrue. If you only look around on Facebook, still your privacy is not protected. And we'll come to the question of why this is the case in a second. But first, let me broaden this a little bit and emphasize that this is about all social media. This goes for Facebook, but also for Facebook's daughter Instagram, but also for Twitter, Pinterest, Snapchat, even for YouTube and Gmail, that a lot of people do not include into social media, LinkedIn, which is owned by Microsoft, and even a lot of sports apps like Fitbit, Strava, you name it. Every medium where the user is followed, or where the user provides input for what is on the medium, is a social medium, and that is what I'm talking about here. So why is this an important realization for privacy, and how do we get there? I think the story starts with the simple question: how do social media make money? Social media make money in two ways. First of all, they have consumers watch ads. So the more ads they show, the more money they're able to make. Their revenue heavily depends on the number of ads you watch. So, and how do they make sure that they make enough money? They try to come up with clever ways to spend you more time on their platforms, because the more time you spend there, if they say show an ad every fourth post, the more posts you watch, the more ads they can show, the more money they make. So it's very important to have the realization that social media have a very strong incentive to keep you hooked on the platform for as long as possible. And all the data scientists they employ, they are very much interested in the question, how can we make people both stay on the platform longer, and how can we have them log in more often as to show them as much ads as possible. The second way they make money is by making their ads more effective. So if they would show the same ad to everyone, of course, it wouldn't be very interesting for advertisers. What they do is, you may have heard of this term, micro-targeting. They make sure to laser focus their ads on those people that are most likely to be interested in it. So Facebook knows your many things about you, your demographic data, other data, we'll get into that. But the key realization for at this point is, the more effective their ads are, the more money they make. They make them effective by making as relevant as possible for you. You can also refer to this concept as personalization, that you see a particular ad doesn't necessarily mean that somebody else who opens the platform will see the same ad, or that the people who will see them are very far away from you, geographically speaking. So the realization we need to have here is, social media need to know you. They need to know what makes you tick, what is how to keep you both on the platform, and which type of ads you are likely to react on, and which type of ads are for you, specifically for you, likely to have you engage in a certain action, be it subscribe for a newsletter, be it buy a certain product, whatever. But the essence of their existence is making money, and how they make money simply is by knowing you. And this is where both privacy and data come in. To know you, they need to have some sense of who you are. And how do they do this? Not by viewing your posts. Your posts are just one very, very small part of the story. Much more important part of the story is behavioral data. And this is a term coined by Shoshana Zuboff in her excellent book, Surveillance Capitalism. What are behavioral data? Behavioral data are the data that you generate when you use a social media platform. I asked before, is your privacy protected if you're just looking on Facebook? No, it's not, because the one you are protecting your data from is Facebook itself. And Facebook itself is very clever and very good at, and I'm using Facebook here, but it goes for all social media. Facebook has become of the archetype for this, but let's stick to Facebook for the moment, but it goes for everyone. They are very good at distilling behavioral data from all your actions. So Facebook can know what your sexual preferences are by measuring how long and what type of posts you view. So if you view posts of blonde women slightly longer or even considerably longer than posts by brown-haired women or men, then Facebook can distill from this that you are most likely, if I as a man watch these posts of these women, they know that I'm heterosexual. They also know what type of women I like, and they know what type of content to feed me in order to keep me hooked on the platform. But it doesn't stick to sexual orientation. Like they can from if you have about 120 likes or even just scrolling around and viewing, they can distill from this your religion, your sexual orientation, your likes and dislikes, and they are able to make a very accurate estimate about how intelligent you are. From the location settings in your phone, they know where you are and where you spend a lot of time. They know from the proximity of your phone to other phones who you spend time with in real life. They know how outgoing you are. They're able to make a psychological profile from the things you watch and the things you share, the things you like. So, for example, they know that if you use the Big Five personality framework, they know if you're an extrovert or introvert, whether you like new things or whether you keep returning to the same things. They know how outgoing you are. They can all distill this if you don't share anything on the platform, just by viewing what you view, what you click, and what makes you come back to the platform. So when we go back a little bit, the way they frame it, if we go back to this screen, the way they frame it, that privacy is about what you post on the platform, it is completely false. Privacy should be about what they collect from you and what they know about you, because they use the data they have on you to have you buy or have you buy more things or come back to the platform. So this is what when we come to the topic that I'm researching in my own PhD dissertation, which is nudging. And nudging is the use of psychological mechanisms to steer people in a certain direction. Nudging very literally means a small or gentle push. But you can imagine that if somebody knows a lot about you, it's much easier to create slight or gentle pushes that are effective for you specifically. I mentioned the concept of personalization earlier. Facebook knows who you are, like I said, your intelligence, your psychological profile, all your likes and dislikes, your demographic features. So having all this information, they can design a nudge that is specifically effective for you. And they know how to influence you. And that this you is each and every one of us, or at least each and every one of Facebook users. And by having these behavioral data, they become so much more effective in exerting psychological influence or influence period on people. And when I first said we have behavioral data, I was talking about learning to know what, how to keep you on the platform and what your preferences are, which makes you buy. But what we see now is that nudging becomes so effective based on these behavioral data that Facebook and other social media are going from discovering your preferences to shaping your preferences, because they have so much knowledge about you and about psychological mechanisms in general. They know how to influence you. They no longer need to discover what you like. They can shape what you like. So if they know how much time you spend on the platform, and they can measure how others react, they can, for example, show you a number of posts where everybody wears a type of shirt, and this type of shirt will become, they know that you're susceptible to seeing others wear this type of shirt, and you may become interested in this shirt. And they've done this in numerous ways. For example, they conducted an experiment in which they showed people only positive posts or only negative posts. And they measured if people were more likely to go with the mood that they were presented. So if they only showed more negative posts, it turned out that people who saw negative posts started posting themselves more negatively. And if they only saw positive posts, they themselves started posting more positively. This is a form of what they call social contagion. They are able to influence your mood, or at least the way you present yourself to others, by showing you a number of, this type of effect from others. So they know how they can influence your, not only your behavior, but even your mood. So this, it's no longer about, privacy is no longer about just discovering who you are and what makes you tick. It's also about shaping who you are and shaping what you feel and think. Because if you spend, well, a lot of teenagers or a lot of people spend hours and hours on social media, so they are very much influenced by what they see there. In nudging, this is also using psychological mechanisms. I mentioned the use of social contagion. People are very likely to do what others do. Other forms of psychological mechanisms are, for example, setting a default. So if you make a suggestion to somebody, they're much more likely to follow that. Or priming somebody. Priming is if you mention a word several times or an association several times, people start to build the association and will start to think of that more often. These are all ways to influence people. And the interesting thing about nudging in the digital world, I think, is that this can all be personalized. So it's about creating the most effective strategy for a unique person. And that goes for each and every unique person there is. This is, for me, the core of privacy. So the question we started with, who are you protecting your data from, is, I think, social media companies. And then the question, why is this important? This is important because you need to protect your power and your way of shaping your own life. So in my nudging research, I focus on 4 topics, of which I want to discuss 2 today. And first of them is autonomy. Autonomy is a very contested concept. It has many, many definitions, but I found this one that I want to use today, which is autonomy is the ability to make decisions and have a say in the direction of our lives. And what I'm researching, or one of the things I'm researching in my PhD thesis, is whether these type of nudges that are both personalized and constructed on behavioral data are in any way jeopardizing autonomy or jeopardizing our ability to make decisions and have a say in the direction of our lives. There are multiple schools of thought on this topic. Some people say, well, you're always influenced. It doesn't matter who you talk to, they will always influence you. So it doesn't really matter if it's Facebook or Google or your brother-in-law, does that really matter? And I think it does matter. It does matter because if you encounter random people on the street, yes, they influence you, but they don't influence you in any systematic way. By systematic, I mean maybe person X is left, Y says you should go right, and this all balances out. But social media, because of the way their incentives are aligned, and because of the way their revenue model is constructed, there is a systematic way of influence exerting on you, all in the same direction. And the same direction is always spending more time online, because that's vital to their revenue model, and engaging more with ads. So the use of social media, and they've become so clever at getting you back on the platform with the goal of making money. This is a systematic influence on your life. and it does harm your ability to choose your own course. Because, well, I think we all influence this. When you're at a bus stop waiting, this is annoying. This takes 2 minutes, maybe 5. The urge to take your phone and to scroll through your social media feed is so strong. And this is not a coincidence. This is very deliberately created in this way. There are data scientists figuring out how to make that feeling stronger, because this is what is making money for people who own a social media business. So this is what I mean by a systematic influence. It's not a coincidence. This is a feature of the system. It is necessary to the way the incentives are created for these companies. And that's why I think that we cannot talk about privacy without talking about autonomy. Autonomy is necessary as a concept to explain why privacy is so important and why you should care about privacy. Okay, then I want to go on to the second topic in my PhD research that I'm researching, which is well-being. The question is whether nudging or digital nudging, as we discussed, is harming your well-being. And this is what I'm working on right now, actually, these months. And I think it's a very interesting topic because it's not all that clear what well-being is. Just like with autonomy, it's a contested concept. It's a concept that has many definitions. But when we're seeing when we're discussing if your well-being is harmed by these digital nudges, I think we can look at 3 things. First of all, is your mental state affected? Happiness as a mental state I think this is a very natural way of thinking of well-being, the way you experience life, the way you think and you feel. And I think that we have seen there is a mounting evidence that do harm this form of happiness. The recent whistleblower at Facebook, she published Facebook's own research that shows that people who, especially teenage girls who use Instagram heavily, so multiple hours a day, their psychological influence is affected. They can see this by the way they post, by the amount of negative words they use in their posts, and by the fact that the more you use it, the more you become addicted, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because your self-worth decreases as you use more as you spend more time on social media. As your self-worth decreases, your hunger for more only grows stronger, and there's a self-fulfilling prophecy, or a perpetual cycle, if you will. So I do think that social media are a harm to our happiness as a subjective experience for this reason, because they always want more. And they're so good at creating this longing for those media. Second conception of well-being is attaining your preferences. So this is thinking of happiness as achieving your self-chosen life. It is very closely connected to autonomy, but this is happiness is a happy life is the life where you fulfill your own goals. Or attain your self-chosen preferences. And then I think I conducted with no way scientific, but with my own friends, and I asked them how much time would you like, or would you ideally spend on your smartphone each day? And most people answer 1 hour, 1.5 hours. And if you ask them how much time do you spend, they say, well, I think roughly that amount. But when you then ask them to install an app that tracks how much time they spend, sometimes the amount of time they spend on their smartphone each day is 5, 6, 7 hours. So the preference of time spending on social media or on a smartphone and the actual amount are diverging hugely. They're not even close anymore. So in this way, this is also this built-in addiction to come back and back. And this is, I think, also harm to our well-being. And then finally, the third conception of well-being that is commonly used is attaining predefined goods such as health, wealth, and happiness. But these can also be other things like development or beauty, and I'm not yet sure if we see if there's a clear threat to these primary goods or these important necessities for life because of social media or privacy. So if you have any thoughts on this, I would be so happy to discuss this with you. And also, I'm very happy, very curious to hear if you have ideas about how social media, or particularly in connection to privacy and nudging, are influencing you, or if this is all overstated by an academic. So we come to the conclusion, this is private. Privacy matters because behavioral data are collected at every click, every view, every action you take online. And these behavioral data are used to discover and shape your preferences. It started with discovering, but it's going more and more into the direction of shaping your preferences. All with the goal of increasing watch time and advertisement revenue. And this poses a potential threat to autonomy and well-being. Potential, well, I still use the word potential here, but I'm going more and more into the direction that to simply argue that this poses a threat to autonomy and well-being. That was my presentation. I hope you found it interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.